Up more than 600% in the last year, these four stocks are solving a big problem for NVIDIA. MarketBeat's Chris Markoch joins us now to talk about the four names we've never mentioned on the channel before, but these stocks are getting a ton of momentum right now because of a big problem they solve for NVIDIA and other chip stocks out there. Chris, let's talk about what that problem is first before we get into the four names you have for us today.
We don't have a problem in terms of having enough semiconductors in terms of the speed of the semiconductor. What we have is a problem is we're calling the copper wall. That's what it's being termed of in the industry. And think of it like this. The problem isn't necessarily the chip itself. The problem is getting data to move through those chips fast enough. That's something that copper can't necessarily do. And that's where this area that we're going to be talking about today, we're talking about optical networking and photonics. That's an area of the AI infrastructure that took off rapidly last year and is expected to show tremendous growth, not just in 2026, but for the rest of the decade.
Yeah, and tremendous growth is absolutely the story here. Several of these stocks are up well over 100%, one up more than 600% year over year. So clearly this idea, this concept is taking off. There's demand showing up for these companies. But again, they're all stock tickers that have never made it on the channel, not even on a MarketBeat Monday. We haven't had investors asking about them. So I wanted to make sure you are aware of these stock tickers and know there could be a lot more growth ahead for the names we're about to talk about. So let's get right into it, Chris. What is this first company on the list?
The first name that we're talking about is Ciena Corporation. The ticker symbol here is CIEN. Ciena provides networking hardware, software, and services for telecom operators and, more importantly to this discussion, for data centers. So what they're doing is they specialize in platforms that deliver high-capacity transmission and automation. Their flagship products include the WaveLogic platform, which is basically considered the industry standard for this sector called optical networking.
Interesting. Definitely more complex stories here as to what the business does. Why are they starting to see growth and demand pick up? It's not like they're a brand new company. Why are they seeing such growth right now?
Yeah, and again, I think a lot of the demand that they're seeing right now is related to AI-related network upgrades. It's getting into this data center play. That's where the demand is coming from. And as we've seen from the hyperscalers, that demand isn't going away.
Well, let's look at the chart, where analysts think this might go and what kind of earnings data we've seen. Is that demand from data centers showing up in their earnings report recently too?
Right now, the stock's up 227% in the last 12 months. And like I think every stock we're talking about in this presentation, it's above the current analyst consensus target, okay, the consensus. In this case, it's up above the consensus target by about 17%. However, if you look at where analysts have been coming in, especially since the first of the year, you're seeing them raise the price targets. Now, this stock's trading currently at around 292. That suggests that if they don't deliver the earnings report that some analysts might hope for, you might see a pullback on the stock. I think that's going to be okay. I think what you're going to be looking for right now is you've seen in the last 3 months, the stock kind of consolidated a little bit and then it went higher. But now this pullback that it's had just slightly, we're going to be looking to see if it makes a higher low than where it landed in like around a week ago. And if it's able to manage to make a higher low than then and keep going higher, that could be a bullish sign for investors. But right now we're getting to that point where we're right before earnings. Things can happen in an earnings report. This might be a time when investors want to be a little bit cautious, but I think this looks like this could be a really good buying opportunity the way the chart is setting up.
And this story is so interesting. The growth story, especially, those numbers just stand out so much of how much growth it's seen in such a short amount of time. Some other things that stand out, though, that are really encouraging for investors. Yes, it might be trading above where those analyst estimates are, but institutional ownership, incredibly solid, over 90% on this one. Short interest is almost non-existent. And so those two indicators as well, just looking at the smart money is absolutely buying, and there's not a lot of people betting against this stock right now.
A lot of the retail investors, the traders that are looking for opportunities may not like that because they may say, well, if there's that much institutional ownership, how much juice can there be in the stock? But I think what you have to look at is the long-term demand for their services. And that just plays right into the whole AI story, the whole data center story. It's going to be necessary. And again, we're talking about companies that are trying to be the alternative maybe to the copper story, where it's not just a transmission story, but also it's fundamentally there's just not enough copper right now. So that's where these sectors could really play very well.
Yeah, it's really all about the AI infrastructure players right now that are seeing this kind of growth because there's so much demand for them right now. And that's why you're also seeing so many of these AI companies make our list of the top 10 stocks to buy in 2026. If you have not checked out this report yet, it's a really interesting read on the top 10 stocks of the year. Thomas Hughes wrote this one. There's a QR code you can scan or links in the description. And again, if you want to take a look at MarketBeat's top 10 stocks to buy in 2026. All right, Chris, let's get on with our photonics list.
Yeah.
These companies that are solving a problem for semiconductors. What's the second name you're looking at?
Well, so in the beginning, you brought up the fact that NVIDIA has a problem, and NVIDIA is actually looking at this company to help them solve it. The company is Lumentum. The next two companies we'll be talking about are about pure plays in the photonics sector. Lumentum is a designer and a manufacturer of the optical and photonic products that are essential for AI infrastructure, including data centers and other industrial applications. They make products like laser modulators, photodiodes, full photonic engines that enable that high-speed data transmission that we were talking about at the beginning of the video. So you need to be able to move data quickly through these semiconductor chips. That's the type of products that Lumentum provides. And as I teased, Lumentum has a partnership with NVIDIA for developing NVIDIA's photonics ecosystem. NVIDIA just released their first products for that, I believe, in March of last year.
That NVIDIA partnership is no doubt why we've seen this stock explode this year, up more than 600%. We're going to get to some of the data behind the price action and what people are saying about this stock. But I do have a question when it comes to this stock and really a lot of the stocks on this list. Are these still a research and development concept? Are they still working to make this concept a reality? Or are these fully in-demand products that are already going to be working for the semiconductor chips out there?
Oh no, they are definitely not conceptual companies. These are companies that are doing business right now. They're delivering products. They're generating revenue, and most importantly, all the companies we're talking about today are already profitable. So no, this is something that's happening today.
Yeah, this isn't a futuristic. These aren't the names that are a bet on whether this concept works. The concept is working, and
Yes.
that's why there's so much demand growing for it. So I think that's an important distinction to look at with all of these names. And again, it's why we're seeing so much growth. Let's look at the earnings for this stock. And again, that price action is so hard to ignore
Right.
on this company.
Yeah, they just reported earnings on February 3rd. They had a beat on the top and bottom lines, strong beats on both. And not surprisingly, you've seen the stock the stock chart spike almost parabolically. This is where the caution comes in. It's trading well above its analyst consensus price target. That's not necessarily unusual. When you have a high momentum stock like this, the market tends to price in growth faster than the analysts currently model for. It's one of those situations where this is a time when it looks like the stock should be moving lower, but it's not. So that tends to say there still might be a little bit more upside to the stock, but I think the short-term play is probably to look at the stock to move down a little bit.
Yeah, that's what we hear from a lot of our viewers all the time is they don't like to look at stocks that have grown this much already. But I think it's an important name to keep on your radar if those pullbacks do come.
Right.
Not that we will see that massive pullback or volatility in the names that we're
Right.
talking about today, but a lot of stocks around the AI trade do tend to see volatility where they'll see those parabolic jumps after a good earnings or good announcement and then see a pretty stark pullback. Is this a name, if we do see some kind of pullback, that you would definitely want to keep watching?
Absolutely. And this is one of those things that you just said. A lot of investors say, well, we don't want to touch a stock that's run up this much. I agree with that. But I also say these are the stocks that intrigue me a lot because when they've gone up this much, you kind of figure they're going to pull back. And if you like the stock, that's when you want to have it on your watch list and say, okay, if it gets down to this level, then I want to buy it. And I know, MarketBeat has great tools to help you maintain watch lists and all that. So you can actually always be alerted when a stock gets into that zone that you say, okay, now this is the pullback. This is the dip I've been waiting for to get in on this stock, especially if you think that it still has more upside ahead. And certainly a lot of analysts believe that Lumentum has a lot of momentum ahead.
Yeah, this is a name to definitely include on your watch list. I don't think it's the one I'm going to add to my Purchase Buys paper trading watch list. I have another name I'm interested in a little bit
Sure.
down the road here, but a really great company to look at. Again, the growth story here gives hope for the rest of the names we're talking about on this list that they still have more room to grow too, even though they've had good growth stories. So let's move on. Let's get to that third company on the list. That's another great growth story, not quite 600% though.
Right. So this company is Coherent Corp. Ticker symbol is COHR. So they're a company that competes with Lumentum, but they also have services that go beyond what Lumentum does. So they do other areas of the photonics chain, I guess you would call it, aside from what Lumentum does. But they certainly do play in this space. They are also another company that's partnering with NVIDIA in this space. And again, it's a company that's shown a lot of strong growth over the past year.
A lot of growth, but a little bit of a pullback right now, which is different than the other names on this list.
Right.
What could be behind that?
Not really sure. They did report earnings back on February 4th. And again, you had a beat on the top and bottom line. So this may just be a case of analysts haven't been aggressively raising that price target, and investors are seeing a current price about 218, and they might think that the stock is probably trading as is maybe a little bit overbought right now.
Yeah, one question I have with this name and really the others on this list too, why aren't analysts being as aggressive with those price target revisions for this company, for Lumen, for the others on this list? We're just not seeing the headlines around these names as much as we do with many other stocks around the AI trade. Why isn't this sector in AI getting as much attention?
I think some of it might just be because there's been that concern, and it's been hanging over the sector for about the past 4 or 5 months, that we are getting into that AI bubble, that the hyperscalers were going to back off on their CapEx commitments. They weren't going to follow through with them. The data center demand was going to slow. And that's just something that simply has not been showing up in the earnings reports. All the Mag 7 companies are saying they're not only maintaining their CapEx spending, but in many cases, they're increasing it. And then you're seeing other companies like Vertiv that are simply saying demand is strong. Memory companies like Broadcom, demand is strong. So I think that a lot of these analysts right now are being cautious. They want to make sure that this build out is going to really happen. The interesting thing, though, is I think these companies, the ones we're talking about today, they're the ones that analysts really should be looking at, because they're providing a solution that gets around the issue of copper, which would be a bottleneck that would concern you if you were an investor. But these companies are helping get around that bottleneck.
Interesting analysis on what's going on with this AI market and what analysts are thinking about all of it. So great story. Again, that demand is there. It is absolutely showing up in the earnings of all of these companies and in that price action that we're seeing. I do think the price action is why I'm going to add this one to Bridget's buys instead of some of the other names. Again, the others are all great and growing just as much, but there's just enough of a pullback that this one looks a little bit more of an attractive buy right now than the other names on the list. I'd love to hear from the viewers out there who are watching this. Do you look for small pullbacks, even like the one this one is seeing right now, to buy when you're looking at momentum buys? Or do you just look at which has the greatest momentum and buy where it's at? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. We do have one more name to get to, and this one was almost going to make my buy list too, because it's a similar story to Coherent. Let's get to the final stock on the list, Chris.
So far, we've been talking a lot about some of the companies that are actually delivering the product to these hyperscalers that they need for the data centers. This last one we're talking about is more of a picks and shovels play. It doesn't provide the products itself. Okay, they don't make the transceivers or the optical components that are going directly into the data center. They provide the testing equipment that makes sure that the optical components are working correctly. They provide the laser systems. They provide the measurement and control systems. So like I've said, they're like the picks and shovels companies that these other photonics companies need, and they've been showing tremendous growth. The forecast again is that there's going to be tremendous demand for this company's services, and the company's name is MKS. Literally, that's the name, MKS, and the ticker symbol is MKSI. It's up about 124% in the last 12 months, and it's up 56% in the last year.
Yeah, another impressive growth story in a field that has just been growing like crazy. If you're looking for other high growth names out there that could really accelerate your own portfolio, make sure to check out our list of 10 stocks that could 10x in the next 5 years. These are a lot of high growth names that maybe haven't taken off quite as much as the names we talked about today.